My name is Nina Caldwell. I'm 35, and right now I'm standing in the middle of a lakeside resort in Lake Tahoe, pretending I don't hear my mother-in-law say I forgot the dressing again like I'm one of her hired caterers. I'm not. I'm an engineer. I've spent the last decade building complex systems for high-speed rail networks across the Pacific Northwest. But to the Caldwell family, especially Darlene, my mother-in-law, I've always just been Ben's quiet wife who works with computers or something. They never really asked what I do, they just assume I don't do much. I'm used to being invisible at these family retreats every summer. They gather at this exact resort, a luxury place tucked between pine forests, and the lake, all crystal chandeliers and fireplaces that smell like old money. And I show up, smile politely, and try not to take it personally when no one remembers I don't eat pork, or that I already brought the salad, or that I exist. But this year's different, because this year I'm not just another guest. I'm the reason the reservation system changed. I'm the one who approved the menu. I'm the person who decided to stop giving the Caldwells their preferred guest discount. I own the place, but nobody knows that yet. Let me back up a second, Ben. And I have been married almost 11 years. He's a tenure professor, brilliant, introverted, deeply kind in his own way, but he never quite found the courage to push back against his family, not when they asked me to help clear the table, even though none of the other wives were expected to, not when they called me sweet but basic, not even when Darlene introduced me to her friends as our Ben's wife from, one of those schools out west. It stung, especially because I'd busted my ass to earn my degree, paid off my student loans, working overtime, and started investing early while they were off in Europe or posting their second homes on Instagram. Still, I stayed quiet, kept building. I never tried to outshine anyone. I just watched, listened, saved. 7 years ago, I started buying into small hotels and boutique properties through a fund I helped structure anonymously. Most of it was business, but when this resort came up for sale last year, their favourite resort, I didn't even hesitate. It was expensive. I drained most of my liquidity to make it happen, but I knew it would pay off. And frankly, part of me just wanted to own something that mattered to them, something they thought was above me. Now, I'm standing here at the welcome dinner wearing my old navy sundress while everyone else is decked out in Ralph Lauren and Loro Piana. They're sipping wine and bragging about their new Teslas. Ben's brother just asked if I could grab a few more napkins from the kitchen because I guess I looked like I was heading that way. I wasn't, but I went anyway because I don't need to argue, not yet. Tomorrow night, the resort manager will announce that the property has a new majority owner, and when they ask who, he'll point to me. The look on Darlene's face worth every damn penny. The night after that welcome dinner, I sat alone on the balcony of our room watching the lake shimmer in the dark. Everyone else had gone down to the fire pit, laughing, drinking wine, roasting marshmallows like something out of a damn lifestyle ad. I could hear them from here, but I wasn't part of it. Not really. I never had been from the moment I married Ben. It was like I had stepped into a world where my presence made people vaguely uncomfortable. Not in a hostile way. No, that would have been easier. It was worse. The subtle exclusion, the little ways they reminded me. I didn't quite fit his mother. Darlene never said anything outright cruel. She never had to. It was in her tone when she asked where I bought my dress. Oh, how practical, in the way she'd smiled too tightly when I spoke up about anything remotely intelligent, or how she once whispered to Ben just loud enough for me to hear. She's nice, but she's not very polished, is she? Ben never confronted her, never even told me she was wrong. He'd just squeeze my hand and say, "She means well." That was his favourite line when we first got married. I hosted Christmas dinners, brought gifts for everyone, offered to help organise the family vacations, but nothing was ever enough. One year, I spent weeks planning Ben's dad's retirement party, rented a venue, designed, the invites handled the catering. At the actual event, his sister stood up to give a toast and thanked everyone who helped, then named every sibling their spouses, and even the caterer by name, not me. Ben noticed he leaned over, kissed my cheek, whispered, "You know you did most of it." But he didn't say a word to the rest of them. That's how it always was. The week before our 3rd anniversary, his cousin Hayley pulled me aside after dinner and said, "You know, it's impressive you've made it this long. Most people who marry into this family just sort of fade out." She smiled like she was giving me a compliment. I smiled back, and that night I cried in the shower with the water turned up so Ben wouldn't hear. At some point I stopped trying. I focused on work, focused on growing something I could actually control. That's when I started investing quietly, consistently. I worked long hours, skipped vacations, drove the same car for 8 years. They all thought it was because I was struggling. They didn't know I was building a war chest. And then, last summer we were here. This exact same resort, and something shifted. Ben's uncle made a joke at dinner about me being surprisingly handy for someone who doesn't come from money. Everyone laughed, even Ben. And I just sat there smiling with my teeth clenched so tight my jaw ached for days later. That night, I heard Darlene talking to someone on the phone through the thin hotel walls. I don't know who she was speaking to, but I'll never forget what she said. She's harmless, sweet, but she'll never be one of us. You can just tell by the way she carries herself that broke something in me. Not because it was new, because it was final. That was the night I reached out to a former colleague who'd gone into hotel acquisitions, and 4 months later I made my offer on this place. They don't know that they don't know any of it. The deal closed quietly. I used a holding company, Clear Pines Hospitality Group, to acquire controlling interest. I kept the existing manager, upgraded some of the back-end systems, made a few policy changes, all under the radar. But tomorrow night, the name behind the company will be made public at the resort's annual ownership summit, and their jaws are going to hit the damn carpet, especially when they learn that Clear Pines has no intention of offering legacy family discounts anymore. That every room they've booked for next summer will be full price. And here's the twist. Ben still doesn't know, not because I'm hiding it maliciously, but because he's never asked, never wondered why I spend late nights on my laptop, why I travel so much, why I've been in meetings with hotel architects and lawyers. I think deep down he just assumes I'm still working on some tech stuff. He's a good man, but he's never seen me fully. And after 10 years, I've stopped trying to force him to. That's what tomorrow is really about. Not revenge, not even vindication. It's about finally stepping into the light on my own terms. And if they can't handle the glare too bad. The morning started, like every other on this trip, mimosas by the lake eggs. Benedict, plated like fine art, and a table full of Caldwells talking over each other like they were all auditioning for a reality show none of us asked for. I sat at the edge of the long table, quietly stirring my coffee, while Ben's sister Lauren went on about how service around here has seriously gone downhill since last summer. The others chimed in, piling on like it was a sport. The check-in girl had the nerve to ask for my ID again, said Hayley, flipping her hair over one shoulder like she was giving a deposition. And don't even get me started on the valet, Uncle Ron added. Kid practically accused me of stealing my own car. I said nothing, just sipped. Then Lauren said something that made my fingers grip the handle of my mug a little too tight, honestly. I miss when this place was still family-owned. You could tell they cared. Now, it's just another faceless corporation trying to act fancy. Ben nodded, completely clueless. Yeah, I heard some holding company bought it. No soul anymore, just policies, no soul anymore. Right? That faceless corporation had upgraded the security system, improved employee benefits, replaced the mouldy AC units in half the cabins, and installed a lake filtration system the old owners had ignored for years. But sure, let's pretend it was better when the manager handed out free rosé to rich families just for existing. What really killed me, though, was that Ben didn't even blink, didn't sense the irony. He hadn't once asked why I'd been on Zoom calls all week, why I disappeared every evening after dinner to walk the property with a clipboard. It just didn't occur to him. It never occurred to any of them that I might actually be important here. I thought that was the worst of it. Until dinner that night, the family gathered in the private dining hall. Darlene had arranged it, of course, and insisted on the dress code formal, but resort chic, whatever the hell that meant. I wore a navy sheath dress I had bought on clearance last winter, paired with the same nude heels I'd worn to my college graduation. Darlene looked me up and down like she was inspecting a couch she might return. We hadn't even made it to dessert before the conversation turned again to resort management. I mean, who renovates the pool deck in August? Lauren said it's like they've never even run a property before some tech executive probably bought it as a side hobby. Ben's cousin Marcus chimed in. Thinks owning a resort is like managing an app. I'd love to talk to whoever's running things, give them some real insight. Ben leaned over and murmured to me, maybe we should leave a review could be helpful? I didn't even respond. I was too busy choking down the burn in my chest. And then Darlene Sweet, smiling passive-aggressive as ever. Darlene lifted her wine glass and said, well, I just hope whoever bought the place realizes families like ours built its reputation. We're not just guests. We're the reason this place has value. I stared at her stunned, not just by the arrogance of it, but by the blind confidence, the way she spoke with such authority like the world still revolved around her checkbook. I couldn't take it anymore. I excused myself from the table and stepped outside into the cool night air. My hands were shaking, and not from the chill, I stood by the stone railing overlooking the lake somewhere behind me. Someone started playing piano in the lodge, a slow, lilting tune that made my chest tighten. I pulled out my phone and called Ethan, the property manager. He picked up on the second ring. Hey, boss, you ready? I looked back through the window. They were laughing about something. Probably me do it, I said. Announced the new ownership tonight. Before dessert copy, that he said you sure you don't want to be in the room? No, I whispered. Let them sit in it for a minute. I hung up and waited inside. I saw Ethan step up to the head of the room and gently tap his glass. The room quieted. I couldn't hear what he was saying, but I didn't need to. I knew the script as part of our new ownership transition. We're honoured to share that Clear Pines Hospitality Group has recently acquired full control of the resort, and tonight we'd like to acknowledge the owner without whom none of this would be possible. I stepped back inside just in time to hear the end of it. Miss Nina Caldwell. The silence was deafening. I walked in slowly, heels echoing on the wooden floor. Every head turned. Lauren dropped her fork. Hayley's mouth literally fell open. Darlene's wine glass tilted sideways and spilled onto the white tablecloth, but she didn't even notice. Ben just stared at me like he'd never seen me before in his life. I looked straight at him. You wanted to leave a review, Ben? I said calmly. I'd be happy to forward it to myself. You ever see a whole table of people freeze, like they've just been caught talking trash about their boss, only to realise their boss was sitting 2 chairs away the whole damn time? Multiply that by 10, add wine sprinkle in generational entitlement. That was the dining hall after Ethan announced my name. Ben's aunt literally choked on her lemon tart. Marcus dropped his phone. I think someone said, "Wait, here?" Like I wasn't even in the room. And Ben, he looked at me like he didn't know whether to be impressed, betrayed, or just embarrassed that he didn't know. Honestly, I don't think he'd decided by dessert. I didn't sit back down. I walked right to the head of the table, Darlene's usual spot, and picked up the microphone Ethan had left behind. My hands weren't shaking. I looked at each of them slowly, deliberately, and then I smiled. Don't worry, I said. You're all still welcome here, just like everyone else now. Dead silence. No comped upgrades, no backdoor bookings, no discounts for being a Caldwell. Not anymore. I handed the mic to the pianist, turned and walked out before anyone could recover enough to fake a polite applause. I made it to the hallway before I exhaled. That was the moment it shifted. Something cracked loose inside me. Not out of anger, but relief. For the first time in 10 years, I wasn't playing along. I wasn't trying to be accepted. I wasn't shrinking myself to make anyone comfortable. And it felt damn good the next morning. I skipped the usual family brunch. Let them sweat instead. I walked the grounds with Ethan, clipboard in hand, checking on the new lakefront upgrades. Staff passed me with respectful nods. Guests smiled and waved. The resort felt alive in a way it never did when I was just Ben's wife around noon. I got the first text from Lauren. "Hey, can we talk?" I didn't answer. 5 minutes later, a knock on my door. It was Ben. He looked nervous, like a guy about to ask for a raise. He knows he doesn't deserve. "Nina," he started. Are you okay?" I stared at him for a moment. He wasn't a bad person. That's what made it harder. You never asked. I said, simply not once. He blinked, asked, what I do, why I work late, where I go when I travel. "You never asked. I didn't think I needed to." He said like that explained everything exactly. I didn't cry, I didn't yell, I just let the silence sit between us until he left that evening. There was a small cocktail event for legacy guests, a formality. I'd considered cancelling until I realised I didn't have to cancel it. I could repurpose it. So I did. The room was full of people in their designer best, holding champagne flirts and whispering about the new owner. Like I wasn't about to walk in. I waited until they were mid-toast before stepping to the front. "Good evening," I said into the mic. "Some of you already know me. Some of you thought you knew me." Polite laughter, nervous glances. I flipped to the second slide on the screen behind me, an aerial rendering of the resort's upcoming expansion will be adding new cabins, a wellness centre and a dock for community kayaking programs, all funded by a new initiative, the Caldwell Women's Fund. Ben's mother perked up at the sound of Caldwell, probably assumed it was some family legacy thing. I turned and looked her dead in the eye. "It's named for my mother, Cecilia Caldwell. She cleaned motel rooms in Oregon. For 16 years, raised me alone and taught me that respect is earned, not inherited." Darlene's smile dropped like a curtain, and then came the twist. I flipped to the final slide. "Also," I added casually, "starting next season, we'll be reviewing all existing private ownership partnerships, including vacation properties currently leased on long-term family arrangements." I didn't have to say it out loud. They knew Ben's uncle owned 2 of those cabins, leased at sweetheart rates. Since that Nina's Lauren had one under her husband's name. Haley's parents had a whole wing they'd been subletting for profit, and now I controlled every single renewal. I thanked them for coming, stepped off the stage and walked right past them all. Marcus tried to stop me. "Nah, wait. Can we talk?" "Sure," I said, pausing. "You can book an appointment through guest services just like everyone else." Now, 3 days after the cocktail event, I sat alone on the dock at Sunrise Coffee. In hand, watching the water, it was calm. Still, like it had been holding its breath, just like I had for years, and was finally letting it out. But the resort wasn't calm, not anymore by noon the next day. My inbox was a battlefield. Ben's uncle had emailed a friendly request to extend his sweetheart lease twice. Lauren had sent me a voice memo with the word misunderstanding used 5 separate times. And Darlene left a voicemail. I've replayed just once because her voice sounded like it was being forced through a smile, sharp enough to cut glass. "Nina, honey, I think this has all gotten a bit dramatic. Don't you? We're family. We can work something out. Woman to woman, right? The same woman who once asked me at Thanksgiving if I'd considered taking a posture class, since engineers tend to slouch, but I wasn't angry anymore. I was precise. By the end of the week, I had my legal team review every cabin lease, including the illegal subletting Lauren had been doing under the table for years. She'd made over $40,000 renting her private family cabin during peak seasons, and never reported a dime of it. We didn't go after the money. We went after the tax records 2 weeks later. She got a formal audit request from the state. I didn't say a word, just forwarded her the contact info for a very good CPA. Ben's uncle wasn't far behind. His cabin lease had long expired, and he'd been using backdoor agreements to keep it going. I didn't revoke it outright. I gave him 30 days to vacate and handed the spot to a non-profit that serves disabled veterans and their families. They moved in by the start of July, and Darlene got her reckoning too. She showed up unannounced one afternoon, wearing pearls in desperation. Trying to have a quiet word in my office, I let her talk for 5 minutes about keeping appearances, about what people will think, about how this reflects on Ben when she paused, expecting me to nod or sympathise. I simply opened my desk drawer and handed her the envelope I'd had ready for days, inside photos, emails, and notarized statements from 3 former employees she'd harassed over the years, housekeepers, hosts, interns. She called one of them a mouthy little thing in writing. I'd quietly settled all 3 cases after acquiring the property and issued formal apologies. But now, with her standing in front of me, I told her I'd prepared a press statement if she ever tried to play victim publicly. I made it clear this wasn't about threats, it was about truth. She left shaking, and Ben, he never fought me, not once. After the reveal, he spiraled, questioned everything, not just me but himself. What he missed, what he failed to ask. We had long, painful conversations in the weeks that followed. There were tears, silence, regret in the end. I told him something I hadn't even fully realised until I said it out loud. I didn't marry into this family to be accepted. I stayed because I hoped one day you'd see me, not just stand beside me, but now. I don't need that anymore, because I see myself, and that's enough. He moved out quietly a month later. We're not enemies, but we're no longer partners. And that somehow hurt less than I thought it would, because I've reclaimed everything they tried to shrink in me. The quiet girl who smiled and made the salad, she owns the table. Now, the truth is, sometimes you don't get closure in the form of an apology. You get it in the form of power quiet and undeniable power. And once you have it, real self-built internal strength, no one can take it back. If you've ever been underestimated, pushed aside, or made to feel small in your own story, I'd love to hear how you turned the tide. Drop your story in the comments.